Guys, it's me, Liam SML here, and today we have to react to some more fake animations. And since I hate these videos so much, let's watch some more. Today we're gonna start with I'm allergic to water. So let's get started.
Hey, I'm Victoria, and I
Fuck
was
you,
only
Victoria.
14 when my whole life changed. It was a regular morning, and I was taking a shower before school, like I always did. After I
Shampoo,
was
so
done,
it
I
sounds
used to
like
towel dry
shampoo.
myself off. That's when I
Ooh!
noticed that I was completely covered in hives. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal.
How can you
The
even be
hives got
allergic to
bigger, and my
water?
whole skin
You're
started to
made of
burn and
water.
itch.
You're
The pain got so bad that
66%
my mom
water.
drove
You're
me to the
basically
hospital.
just one giant
Unfortunately, the
cucumber.
doctors had no idea what was wrong with me. Finally, after 3 days inside the hospital, they diagnosed me with aquagenic urticaria, which is a fancy way of saying water allergy. Technically, it's not an allergy, but then again, no one really knows what it is. And because only 1 in 200 million people have it, there aren't any scientists trying to find a cure. It really sucks. When I got my diagnosis, I became seriously depressed because I thought my life was over. I mean, what boy would ever want to date a girl that doesn't take showers? I wanted to cry, but I couldn't because even my own tears caused rashes on my face. Life felt so unfair. But when my mom saw how I was feeling, she bought me a book called Life Without Limits by Nick Vujicic. He was born without legs and arms. He lived an extraordinary life for himself. Reading his
Just some
story
stupid
encouraged me to stop
Facebook
complaining about things I
notifications.
can't change and instead to focus on things that are in my control. Like, I always dreamed of becoming a professional soccer player, but since I'm allergic to my own sweat, I had to give up on that dream. But instead of complaining how unfair the world is, I just chose a new career. Now I want to become a doctor and help other people, maybe even find a cure for an unusual condition like me. And I'm kind of lucky because where I live, it always rains. That means that most of the time I can't leave my house, so I have plenty of time to study. Oh, and in case you were wondering how I clean myself, I actually take one cold shower once a week. Yeah, afterwards I'm covered in hives and rashes for the rest of the day, but at least I'm clean. So you don't need to feel sorry for me, because overall, I'm
Yeah,
doing pretty
you're
fine, and
definitely
there are
fake.
plenty
Let's
of
look at.
people who have...
I live with
Hey,
half a
I'm
brain.
Marissa, and I've been watching Share My Story for the last few weeks. And today, I want to tell you my story of how I lost one half of my brain. I was a completely normal girl until the age of 3. But then I had my first seizure, and I can still remember riding in the ambulance. Unfortunately, the seizures
Yeah,
didn't
that's my
stop,
ambulance
and at one
impression.
point, I was having seizures every 5 minutes.
Whole
The
5
doctors
minutes?
diagnosed me with Rameson's encephalitis. It's a rare inflammatory neurological disease which affects only one half of the brain. The doctors gave me all kinds of medicine to treat it, but nothing worked. And because the seizures kept me from falling asleep, I was close to death after a few days. That's why my parents allowed the doctors to cut out the affected area, which meant I'd lose half of my brain.
Half of your
Obviously, my
brain,
parents
you're
were
probably gonna
very
be
worried about
retarded or
brain
lose all your
damage,
brain
but I
cells.
was lucky. Because I was so young, my brain was still growing and developing. So even though I only had one half left, my brain was able to adapt and reorganize itself. After the operation, the seizures stopped. And these days, the only signs of what happened are that I don't have much control over my right
Why
upper
don't you just
body.
give her a brain
School was hard,
transplant?
though. I find it tough to focus for long, and it took me years to learn how to read and write. I remember watching other kids doing things like playing on the swings or chasing each other, and I'd be sad because I couldn't join in. My parents didn't have it easy either. I had lots of mood swings growing up, and sometimes I even threw scissors and forks at them. Because whenever
These
I was
animations are
angry,
so
I lost
fake.
all
You
my
know, let's just leave a
self-control.
hate comment
The
on
doctors
this.
explained it by saying that my prefrontal cortex was still damaged by the brain operation I had as a 3-year-old kid. But despite my many flaws, I'm always trying my best to be a
I'm gonna leave a
positive
hate
person.
comment.
I'm constantly joking, and I always have a smile on my face. That's because I know how lucky I am to be alive, even though I lost half my brain. Today, I'm 28 and
Just
married
gonna
to the man
spam
who I
fake
love
comments.
very much. I also play the violin in my spare time, although I'm not very good at it. Many years ago, I dreamed of becoming a nurse so I could help others the way
Fake.
the doctors helped me. Unfortunately, I can't control my right arm, so I've been told I wouldn't be able to pursue that profession. But instead, I became a
If
part-time
they actually
cleaner at a
respond to
local
this,
hospital,
I'm
and I
gonna be really
also volunteered to
hilarious.
spend time with patients who need someone to talk to. Recently, one of my
No,
former
I'm done with this
classmates was
shitty animation.
hospitalized. She was one of the girls that made...
Let's look at some more popular videos. My sister ruins my wedding. You know what? My horrible uncle. Sure, let's Ad!
Very lonely. Have you ever felt so lonely that you wanted to give up on life? I
Yeah.
have not. But you can probably
That's
imagine
why I
how I
have
felt
no
as a kid being raised
friends.
by my uncle who acted like I didn't exist. It all started when my parents decided to leave the country. They wanted to start a new life, but unfortunately, I wasn't part of their plan. They decided I
That's
should live
basically
with my
child
uncle, but when they brought me
abandonment.
to his home, he didn't want me. My parents and he started screaming at each other, and in the end, my dad had to give him a bunch of money in exchange for letting me live with him. Back then, I was only 8 years old, and I haven't seen my parents ever since. All I know is that their flight was going somewhere to Europe. You can probably imagine that my parents had never loved me very much. But they were still hundreds of times better than my uncle. He was an old and
100% better.
emotionless man. He barely even acknowledged my existence. The only time he talked to me was when he gave me orders like to clean the bathroom or wash his clothes.
Hey, that's
I was
basically
so
child.
desperate for love or some kind of connection that my
That's
stuffed
basically
animal Theo
child.
became my best friend. I talked to him for hours because I had no one else who loved or
Oh
cared
no,
about
child
me.
abuse.
My
How
uncle
much
also never signed me up for school.
Sign.
So I ended up
Okay.
spending a
That
whole
is
year not
child
leaving my uncle's apartment and
neglect.
only eating the rest of his meals.
Child
At
labor.
one
Yeah,
point,
child labor.
I
He's
couldn't
using
take it
her for child
anymore.
labor.
I needed someone to talk to and walked outside. I was only 9 and hadn't felt the sunlight on my skin in more than 12 months. I felt overwhelmed and scared by all the noises and sounds. At one point, a policeman approached me and asked if I needed help. I responded, "I'm okay," but he didn't believe me. Probably because I hadn't washed my hair or clothes in weeks. I must have looked like I'd been homeless for years. He asked me where my parents were, and that's when things got really messy. The authorities found out I was living with my uncle and that he hadn't taken appropriate
Springfield during Springfield.
Before he left, he promised me that soon someone would come and adopt me, and then I would have real parents who would love and take care of me. But I waited for 2 months, and no one came to adopt me. Meanwhile, the other kids inside the orphanage called me the dirty or the weird girl. So again,
Shut up, you stupid bitches.
my time with my teddy bear, Theo. But then, after 3 months, the same policeman that had saved me from my uncle's home came back into the orphanage to look for me. He wanted to know if I had found a new family, and he wasn't alone. He had brought his wife with him. It felt so good to see him again, even though I was too shy to talk to him, but I could feel that he cared about me. When he said, "My wife and I have thought about this for a long time, and we wanted to ask you if you would like to become our daughter and be a part of our family," I wanted to scream, "Yes, yes!" But after years of neglect, I was too shy and couldn't bring out a word. In the end, he told me to think about it, and that he would come back the next week to ask me again. But while he and his wife were on their way out, I quickly drew a painting and ran after them. When I had stopped them, I showed them my drawing. It was me holding both their hands.
How can you have a few seconds to draw that? That picture is really, really
I
bad.
could express myself. I still remember how they both took me into their arms. It felt so warm and so good to be touched by another human being. It felt like years of pain were being healed inside my
Your heart
body.
is repelling.
Afterward, my new parents went back into the orphanage to sign the papers to adopt me, and by the next day, I was living with them in their home. They didn't have a bed for me, so I had to sleep right between them. But of course I didn't mind, because for the first time I could remember I didn't feel lonely or abandoned. My adoptive parents give me endless amounts of love, and there's nothing more important for a kid than to be loved. I just wanted to say thank you
Then
to my
her
dad
uncle's
and my
gonna try to
mom.
kill her.
You have
Ooh!
literally saved me, and therefore you will always be my heroes. Thank you so much.
Bonus story.
All families have secrets. I discovered ours when I was 14. It was a letter from my mom to my dad. She wrote,
No,
"Living
I'm
with
done.
you
I'm
was
done with this
hell."
shitty animations.